Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Spiritual Scientist. I'm Victor Hamza. I bet you didn't think I had another thing to talk about. Maybe that was it. Maybe there's no more videos coming out. Who knows? But I thought I'd do another one. It's really good coffee, actually. In a handmade mug, which is so cool. If you could buy a handmade mug, something that's made locally that's really good to support, artists and things like that. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the fifth dimension today of consciousness. So I posted a funny meme I put as the cover page of this video. So if you later want to look at it, you can. I made that one up, and I thought it was funny. And then someone commented. They said, "What is the fifth dimension of consciousness? Consciousness. I'm new to all this spiritual stuff." So I said, "No one ever asked me before," and that's why I made up these memes to talk about, I guess. And he did. So I ended up texting him through or messaging him through Facebook the answer. So I thought it was interesting, and since I actually know a little bit about it, make a video about it. So here we go with the fifth dimension. So we'll start off with the second dimension, and we'll work our way up. And I'm doing this live, which I thought would be fun. Second dimension is a floor itself, whereas the third dimension consists of both the floor and whatever is on it. So we have a flat plane, and then we have whatever's obviously on top of it. So most people understand the third dimension. What in a holographic kind of reality, you can actually have a two-dimensional plane, but yet it would seem that there would be a three-dimensional actual reality to a two-dimensional subjects if they had something like a like gravity. If you like gravity, if you had gravity, that would give it that extra way to be holographic, and within the holographic matrix of that, then you would see that it was three dimensions. It doesn't have to be gravity. It would be something that would be like an equation being part of it. That would be something that would be rising up, a little bit. So a hologram, which could be a code within two dimensions, which would give it more of a three-dimensional feel. Like if you were in a video game and then all of a sudden you'd be thinking that you're in three dimensions, but yet you're really, two dimensions. So that's from 2 to 3D and beyond. So let's talk about the fourth dimension. And this is where certainly it gets more interesting. And I'm doing this live, so I could just Google it. I like to go off of a little bit what I'm reading and go into it. There was a fifth dimension and I'm going into the fourth dimension, and it went right to the fifth, which is the way of the fourth dimension, isn't it? That's a joke. The fourth dimension of space, or 4D space, is a mathematical representation of the concept of three-dimensional space or 3D space. It's a mathematical extension of the concept, no kidding. Three-dimensional space is the simplest possible generalization of the observable that one only needs three numbers called dimensions to describe sizes or locations of objects, and the ipso facto say that it's time. So time is what some people say is like the more of a fourth dimension, but let's go into that a little bit. A fourth dimensional space, or 4D space, is a mathematical extension of the concept of three dimensions or 3D space. The three dimensional space is a simplistic possible generalization of the observation that one only needs three numbers called dimensions to describe the size or location of objects in the everyday world. For example, the volume of a rectangular body is found by measuring the length, width, and height, often labeled X, Y, and Z, right? The idea of adding a fourth dimension began with Joseph Louis Lagrange in the hundreds and culminated in a precise why can't I say that? In a precise formalization of the concept in 1854 by Bernard Riemann. In 1880, Charles Harold Hilton popularized these insights in an essay titled "What is the Fourth Dimension?", which explains the concept in the fourth dimensional cube with step-by-step generalization of properties, lines, squares, and cubes. This simplest form of Hinton's method is to draw two ordinary cubes separated by an unseen distance, draw lines between their equivalent vertices. This can be seen in accompanied animation. So I'll show you the animation. And it's kind of cool how it kind of plows into itself, right? I don't know if you can see that pretty well. Keep it right there a little bit. Interestingly enough, Cubism and Picasso and all those artists, the surrealists of, in the modern, art era, were trying to take the underlying physics that was coming out at the time and do it in a artful way into the generalized public to say, hey, what could be the fifth dimensional be like? So, and the fourth dimension. So when you see Picasso with the noses on one side of the face, that would be like someone from another dimension looking at us, and what would we seem like? So interesting, very interesting, right? Higher dimensional spaces become one of the foundations for formally expressing modern mathematics and physics. Large parts of these topics could not exist in current forms without the use of such spaces. Einstein's concept of space-time uses 4D space, though as a Minkowski structure that is a bit more complicated than Euclidean 4D space. So that is where it starts to get interesting, right? The rest is kind of boring academia. So let's go into Minkowski structure for more interesting parts of this. In mathematical physics, Minkowski space, or Minkowski spacetime, combination of three-dimensional Euclidean space and time in a four-dimensional manifold where spacetime interval between any two events is independent of the inertial frame of reference in which they are recorded. So you have two things going at the same time. One of them isn't connected and the other one isn't connected. So that would mean that you're into a more of a, fourth dimensional space. Makes sense? So you have two cars going, but then there's someone to observe those two cars. That is more four-dimensional space. All right. Now, although initially developed by mathematicians, oh, you're back. I put something in my coffee. It's really good. So, sorry, I have some lag issues. So what I was saying is fourth dimensional space is interesting. Minkowski space closely associated with Einstein's theory of special relativity as the most common mathematical structure in which special relativity is formulated, while the individual components of Euclidean space and time may differ through to length, contraction, time dilation. In Minkowski spacetime, all frames of reference will agree on the total distance spacetime between events. Because it treats time differently than it treats 3D spatial dimensions, Minkowski space differs from four-dimensional Euclidean space. Just get it? It's basically saying that, the locations are... I made the sweets decaf coffee. That's what's different. Let's see, skip ahead. Galilean group transformations preserve 3D dimensional Euclidean distance. This distance is purely spatial. So, just wanted to explain a little bit about that. Now we're there. We have a good foundation. Okay, so sorry about that. We have a little lag there. Now we're going to get into fifth dimension. So, and I'll talk a little bit about these consciousnesses. So, I'm talking about the physics part, but now at this point, I'm able to talk about. Um, Sorry, there's some lag, but it's okay. Let's me have some more of my decaf coffee. So, we're going to talk a little bit about fifth dimensional space. And when I get into fifth dimensional space, what we're going to see as physics, but I'm going to be more relating to that as consciousness. So, the fifth dimensional space is space with five dimensions. If interpreted physically, that is one or more than the usual spatial dimensions of the fourth dimension of time using relativistic physics. Is an abstraction which occurs frequently in mathematics, whereas a legitimate construct in physics and mathematics, a sequence of n numbers can be understood to represent a location of n-dimensional space, whether or not in the universe is five-dimensional topic of the debate. Now, um, let's get into that a little bit. A theory that they were developing, a theory that unifies the four-dimensional interaction nature, strong, weak nuclear forces, gravity, electromagnetism. German mathematician Theodor Kaluza and Swedish physicist Oscar Klein independently developed the Kaluza-Klein theory in 1921, which used the fifth dimension of unified gravity with electromagnetic force. Approaches which layer now, so we're talking about this as force in space time. So in essence, in a fifth dimensional mindset, you would be aware of time as going past time. So, for instance, if you're able to foresee something in the future, if you're seeing more of a multi-dimensional reality, that would be more of a fifth dimensional construct for consciousness. So that would be like Einstein, Bergman, fifth dimensional. They were saying here the main novelty of Einstein and Bergman was seriously considered the fifth dimension as a physical entity rather than. Sorry about that. Some lag. So within basically within a fifth dimensional construct, what I'm saying to you is that if you are aware of quantum entanglement, then your consciousness would be, in a way, arriving into, more of a fifth dimensional construct versus a fourth. So fourth, as we were talking about with the Minsky, two cars going by, and then you have an observer, right? Now with a more of a fifth dimension, that would be if you have two particles and they're both quantumly entangled, and you're able to observe, both of those being quantumly entangled, you're getting more into a fifth dimensional construct, although it might seem that those are more um, fourth dimensional constructs. They're actually that would actually be more of a fifth dimensional construct. Interesting, isn't it? So thanks so much for tuning in. When you are more in a fifth dimensional, then you're going to be seeing how more things in your reality plug together. You'll be seeing more synchronicities. Those synchronicities would be if you want to look at um, if you want to look at our reality as like a is into like a matrix type of reality, then you would see a more formalized structure to the universe and how that kind of adds up to higher integers that would be propagate into your environment, and then you would notice them when you're more into a fifth dimensional construct of your mind, being a fifth dimensional construct of what we think of as reality. So if you're having a dream and you're seeing in the future, your mind would be more into a fifth dimensional awareness versus a fourth dimension because you're outside of time, like things that delve not into the fourth dimensional construct. That would be considered more fifth dimension. So as with anything, with with vibration, so if we take an effect like a higher vibrational being spirituality, so the higher vibrations, you would experience higher dimensional aspects, which wouldn't be as they wouldn't be you wouldn't be like you'd go anywhere. It would be like you're aware of more things that are happening in your environment in that respect, and seeing how more things are interlinked. So that would be more of a fifth dimensional construct. So understanding that gravity isn't really gravity. It's just a part of space time. That's more into fourth and fifth dimensional reality. When you understand, like relativistic speaking, like a black hole, which would have its certainly its event horizon, but like I said in the other video, if you go through a black hole, then how time would change, and you have that time dilation factor, but then time would it might even seem to be reversed from the event horizon on the inside for a bit. That would be more of a fifth dimensional mindset. So those different awarenesses are into a higher dimension. Also, when you're in your environment, when you're looking at ego and id, and you're thinking all yourself, you could think of that as a lower dimension. But when you're thinking about other people, then you're thinking higher dimension and how they're interacting. So there is an aspect, almost a social aspect to our in our environment, how we are reacting to other people. Are you only about yourself, or are you being more higher mindset, more of a universal consciousness? So that would be more of a fifth dimensional, mindset as well. So all these kind of things, fit into that basket. And I do lump in, the spirituality of it into the physicality of it, because I, know that we're within this, whatever this is, but there's a higher aspect to it. So that higher aspect allows us to see above, to question and to see what's really going on. Like if you couldn't question, then you couldn't. So if we didn't have two brains in our heads, then we couldn't have thoughts in a way, because you have to have somebody hearing the thought. Otherwise you don't, you're not having any thoughts. So I remember way long ago when I started understanding that I had two brains in my head. That was a very interesting thing, and then learning how to harmonize them, which was another interesting thing. So that's why we get into this. In reality, some people say second dimensional or dualistic mindset. So a dualistic mindset is something that there's a lot of meditation teachers and such, and they go into there's a Taoistic duality, mindset that goes into they say, hey, you're into, they see the Tao, they see it, the Tao, if you will, they see it in everything, and as it is. So there's a yin yang, positive, negative. It's when we get beyond our dualistic nature that you can approach, a higher dimensional mindset of, I believe even more compassion. It's good to have the yin yang part of it, but in order to, to be more of the observer of that, then we go into a higher dimensional part of it, an aspect. Anyway, so I was kind of answering somebody when they asked me about more of a fifth dimensional. What is that? So a fifth dimensional mindset in our aspect of reality would be you're more into a in the physicality, you're more into a Scholar wave set, and you're more into a different subset that way. When you're into a Scholar wave set, that would be a fifth dimensional construct to our reality. Not a lot of people are understanding what I'm saying right now, but you could, I guess, Google it. Anyway, it's fun, right? Talking about this stuff a little bit. I'm having messages come up on my screen while I talk, so anybody want to say anything at all, you're welcome to participate, although there's just 2 people here, and I do these kind of things unannounced when I feel like it. So hopefully you're enjoying my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate every one of you for even clicking a like or a thumbs up. That I said, oh, okay, maybe I did a good job. If not, don't put a thumbs up. It allows me to know. I saw 43 people view a video and I have 2 thumbs up. Maybe I should stop. If I have 43 people watching it, all 43, put a thumbs up, then I'm saying, oh, maybe I did a good job. So I can understand, and you could always comment, would you be interested in me, speaking about? But just thought I'd talk about the fifth dimensional consciousness. And after I sign off on this, I'm sure I'm gonna see something that says, oh, I forgot to talk about this, right? So anyway, I thought to be the spiritual guy, wear some beads today. You know what it is? If I put, and every time, when you're wearing a bead or something, you should do a prayer or, a meditation, and you go around and you feed around to it. So it's kind of cool. But I'm just been wearing, when I'm off and I'm not working, I put on what makes me happy. So that's my criteria. That's my criteria for being in front of you or doing something out in the world. If I could wear something that, some clothes, if I have the choice, and it makes me happy, then I'll wear it. If it doesn't make me happy in that environment, then I don't feel comfortable and I want to change. So these are my happy clothes, so I'm wearing them. So I think that that's a good way for you to be in your world. If you're wearing something that makes you happy, do it. If it doesn't make you happy, why do it? Be happy in as much as you can. And if putting a shirt on versus a different shirt makes you more happy, wear that shirt. I'm not saying that everybody wears tie-dyes and run around without pants in the street. My that comment blew out the Wi-Fi, so I had to reconnect. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. This went a little longer. Oh, it's only 24 minutes. Not too bad. I know when I'm on YouTube and I see it. So anyway, the lag's getting bad, and I'm gonna get going. Thank you so much for Tam, for your thought. Tam Flower. It's all about flowers right now. We're gonna have Valentine's Day in a few days, so pretty cool. Maybe I'll put out something pretty neat. Anyway, thanks so much. Love you. Thanks. Like, subscribe, share, and all that. All right.